Hello and welcome back to the Ash and Stone channel. My name is Chris, and today I'll go through how I painted up the Crimson Remnant, a striking looking unit of the undead, as I paint up the ill-fated Crimson Champion. So first things first, the Crimson Remnant are modular 3D prints from Victus Miniatures. I print them at 90% and they are a good match for the Oathmark plastic skeleton kit. So good in fact that they are a great way to use up some of the extra heads and arms from the Oathmark kit. To make the Crimson Champion a little bit more heroic, I stretch my blender skills to the limit and blunder through adding a cloak to the figure before printing him out. From there, he's primed in white, ready to be painted. I start with a bone colour. I used 3 different paints to up the variety among the unit: Citadel Skeleton Horde, Army Painter Speed Paint Pallid Bone, and Speed Paint Bony Matter. For the champion here, I'll be using Bony Matter, and I simply give all of the areas of bone a reasonable coat. From there, I use some Vallejo US Grey to paint what remains of the trousers. And this will take 2 coats to get a solid colour over the white. To make the bone darker and more menacing, I give both it and the trousers a wash using Army Painter Dark Tone, which will add deeper shadows to the recesses, as if they are infused with dark magics. I also hit the areas of metal. The general rule is to put your metallics over a black base, but as I'll be making them very rusty, there isn't going to be much metallic showing when I'm finished, so even this is probably overkill and unnecessary, but I had the wash out, so what the heck. I give that a little time to dry, and because the dark tone has done its job, I need to bring the highlights up a bit. So out comes the Iraqi sand, and the areas of bone are given a light dry brush to highlight the high points. We follow that up with a little Vallejo off-white, which is used to pick out the teeth. And if you're feeling particularly motivated, you can pick out some extra highlights on other areas of the bone. Now I crack out the Army Painter Dragon Red. This is the first of the new Fanatic paints I've used, and it's good. Much better than the previous war paints. I use it to base coat the areas of cloth, the tunic and the cloak. There are bits of remaining tunic in the arm and neck holes of the cuirass, so I make sure to hit those as well. I apply 2 coats to get a consistent finish. Next up, to separate the cloak from the tunic a little more, I give the cloak a couple of coats of Vallejo Carmine Red. In retrospect, I'd probably use a different red, as the dragon and carmine ended up very similar in tone, but there is a little difference there. This is followed up with a wash using Army Painter Red Tone to shade the cloth and bring out the details. When that is dried, we can go back in with the dragon red and carmine red and reapply the base colour, leaving the darker areas of wash in the recesses. To finish the cloth off, a little Iraqi sand is mixed into each of the reds to give us a nice faded highlight, which is applied in a rough fashion around the edges of the cloth and roughly onto the high points of the cloth. By applying the highlight in a rough and somewhat random fashion rather than smooth and tidy in the normal way, we can help sell the illusion of tattered and unevenly worn cloth. As befits a champion, we are going to add a little extra to the tunic and cloak in the form of a simple border using Army Painter Fanatic Warped Yellow. This also does the job very well. Reds and yellows are often a pain to paint, but 2 coats to get a decent yellow is pretty dang good. I try to paint a reasonably even line at a consistent distance from the edge of the cloth. In general, the more evenly you can do this trim, the better, but as this cloak has seen better days, there's no need for it to be perfect. Now it is time for the steel, and I'm going to start with a base of Vallejo Natural Steel, simply giving the areas of metal a coat. It's about to get mostly covered up, so there's no need for it to be particularly even, and as I said earlier, the white undercoat won't matter. I have a rust effect paint set here from AK Interactive that gives me plenty of options for rust colours. The colours themselves are great, the paints however are awful to use and require an ungodly amount of shaking to make useful. The 3 paints I'll be using here are dark rust, medium rust, and light rust. These are roughly applied in patches across the surface of the steel, starting with the dark rust, and moving on to the medium and then light. The light is applied much more sparingly than the others, and this results in a nice mottled uneven look. Following that, I grab the chocolate brown to base all of the areas of leather: the boots, the belt, and the grip of the sword. And then these areas are given a heavy splattering of flat earth. With the chocolate brown being the freshly dyed colour of the leather, the flat earth is where it has been scuffed and cracked and worn and just generally not very well looked after, which is appropriate for a skeletal champion. The final step of wear on the leather is, as always, Vallejo Dark Sand, which is applied lightly in areas of particular wear, such as the edges or corners or the tops of the toes, to represent where the item has been worn through the layer of dye to the raw leather beneath. And to finish it off, a liberal coat of Army Painter Strong Tone gives us our shading and helps to tie the 3 previous colours together. With the bulk of the painting done, I give the champion a blast of Tamiya Flat Clear to both protect the paint job and also to remove any shine caused by the paints and washes used so far. To bring a little bit of that shine back, I use Vallejo Steel to add bright nicks and scratches to the sword and armour of the figure, representing areas where the rust has been recently worn through to the bright steel beneath. Then we are on to basing, and I put down a layer of grout, paint the rim black, and add a little static grass. That's the champion done! For the other figures in the unit that required shields, I used the shields from the Oathmark Human Light Infantry kit to outfit them. They were painted with the same Fanatic Dragon Red and Warped Yellow, with various sun motifs. The patchy coverage of the yellow was a real advantage here, as a single slightly thinned layer has added to the dilapidated look of the equipment. Hope that has helped out. The bright, bold colours make them a very striking looking unit on the tabletop, and they contrast nicely with the dull bone and bronze of the other units. As always, thank you very much to those supporting on Patreon. It does make a world of difference, and we will see you all next time. Cheers.